Welcome to Obi-Wan Studios, and for today's LEGO Star Wars set review, I have one of the very first Clone Wars sets ever, the 7669 Anakin's Jedi Starfighter. This set released in January of 2008 for $20, and it retired at the end of 2009. Today, if you're looking to pick one of these up sealed in the box, just like my example right here, you can expect to pay about $120 based on sales data from Brick Economy. Anakin's Jedi Starfighter contains 153 pieces and comes with 2 minifigures. Of course, we have Anakin Skywalker and R2-D2. Now, the 7669 Anakin's Jedi Starfighter was one of 2 sets that released at the beginning of the year in anticipation of both the Clone Wars movie and TV show. And on this example of the box that you guys can see here, it has the 2007 Darth Vader style of box art branding, but by the summer of 2008, that would change to the more typical Clone Wars style box art from 2008 with the blue line and the Clone Trooper Phase 1 helmet on it. So there are 2 different variations of the box for this set. I just have the earlier one that was released kind of before the entire Clone Wars wave came out. And besides the change in branding for this box, I think the box art just looks really good. You have the nice shot of Anakin's Jedi Starfighter on the front. You see Anakin Skywalker in his Clone Wars armor there on the bottom left, but the actual minifig window for this box art is on the top of the box where you see Anakin Skywalker and R2-D2. And then what I think is pretty funny is that on the bottom right of the front, you have an as seen in the Clone Wars kind of logo there, but the set came out before the Clone Wars release, so you couldn't have seen it yet. So kind of an interesting quirk about the box art that I just think is funny, but I think also looks really cool. And then on the right side of the box, you have the LEGO Star Wars Complete Saga logo on that side as well. So just a couple different logos that are placed on this box. And then when it comes to the back of our box, you see the set's play features highlighted along with some of the other sets that released around that time, like the 7670 Hailfire Droid and Spider Droid set, which was the other Clone Wars era set that released at the start of 2008. But I'm just really excited to experience this set for the first time because it is such a cool part of LEGO Star Wars' history, and if you go by the set number, it is the very first LEGO Star Wars set for the Clone Wars to ever release, so I'm just really looking forward to actually experiencing this part of LEGO Star Wars' history for myself. Alright, so as far as the box contents are concerned, we have 3 unnumbered bags, which is just kind of what you'd expect for a smaller build like this. The instructions manual, in my case, I'll throw up some other shots of it too, is just super mangled, nowhere near in great condition at all for being new right out of the box. So that is pretty disappointing, but luckily the little sticker sheet is in really good condition. All the stickers look to be absolutely fine, so that is at least one win. I'm gonna go now and build the very first Clone Wars era set ever, and I will check back in with you guys and continue the review once Anakin's Jedi Starfighter is all complete. Alright, now with the set all built, let's go over the minifigures first, starting off with the very first version of Clone Wars Anakin. And I'm sure for a lot of you guys, this minifig comes with a ton of nostalgia, this being that first version based on the TV show, and the animated style, especially with the face print, I get isn't for everyone, but personally, I do really like it, but I completely understand if you aren't the biggest fan of its design. The armor, I think, looks fantastic with the brown arms as well. There's no back printing for this version of Anakin or second face print, but for that first Clone Wars version of him, I think he just overall looks really great, of course with that blue lightsaber as well. And then we have our R2-D2, which is a pretty simple but standard version for the time. You have a nice print that goes all the way around the astromech droid's head and then printing on the front, but no back printing, so by today's standards, it definitely looks outdated, but this is just the typical R2-D2 for the time, so nothing really wrong with it looking at it from that perspective. Overall, just 2 really great minifigs for this set. Okay, so now turning to our Jedi Starfighter build, this is one where I think it has aged not perfectly. It definitely is showing its age a little bit with some of the parts usage and just the overall design for this Jedi Starfighter, but considering this is, like I said, if you go by the set number, the very first actual Clone Wars set ever, I still can't help but think it's just such a cool looking piece of LEGO Star Wars' history. Now, if you compare this Jedi Starfighter to what you see in the Clone Wars, like Season 1, Episode 6, Downfall of a Droid, for example, where you get an actual pretty good look at Anakin's Delta 7B Starfighter from the early days of the Clone Wars, it looks pretty accurate with the color blocking. At first, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not sure how I really feel about the way the yellow and gray kind of striping along the Jedi Starfighter was actually done, but comparing it to the source material, I think especially for 2008, the designers of this Starfighter did a pretty good job. The one thing that I'm not sure on is just the light gray and dark gray that was added in. Maybe just sticking to one color would have looked a little bit better, but overall, pretty accurate, which I'm very happy to say even for 2008, they were able to do pretty well. So now let's dive into the details of our Jedi Starfighter build, starting off at the very front where we have these two longer transparent stickers. They each go on a plate piece, and this is kind of the most annoying part of the build where you gotta line these stickers up really well in order for it to look good. And in my case, I think I did a pretty good job getting them to match up there, but there's just one area where if you don't do it well, it's just not gonna look the best. Then on the top side, you have a laser cannon little build on either side of the wings, kind of the standard for what you'd expect around this time point in LEGO Star Wars for Jedi Starfighter 2, so those look pretty fine. And then in terms of the wings design on the top, you have just some yellow pieces as well mixed in with the dark gray just to get that accurate color blocking across. Of course, on the right side, we have a printed Republic logo piece which looks really nice. And because this is the Delta 7B version of the Jedi Starfighter, we have the astromech docking port in the middle of the build, which you can just take R2-D2 and place them right in. And one of the play features with this build is the fact that at the back of the build, you have this little transparent blue cone, which is connected to a Technic system. And if you push it in with some force, just like that, you can eject R2 out and kind of mimic the episode Downfall of a Droid where Anakin and R2, of course, get separated, and then there's a nice kind of search for R2-D2 that comes out of the whole episode. But the system is one that for kids would have been a lot of fun to have played with, and it doesn't really affect the overall aesthetic of the Jedi Starfighter, so it's nice and incorporated into the build, so I very much appreciate that. And then just behind the astromech docking port, we have our cockpit for Anakin. Now that windshield piece is definitely an old school looking piece, but one that I remember from a lot of great sets from my childhood. Inside, taking that windshield piece off, which you just have to pull it completely off from the build, there is a really old school looking printed control panel, but more than enough room for Anakin to be placed inside of the Jedi Starfighter. And then moving to just behind the cockpit, we have a Republic logo on each side of the rear section, which I believe this is part of the shield generator system, at least to one of the cross sections. Then you have the rear stabilizer fin as well, which is part of kind of the radiator system as well. And then that has a larger sticker that's placed on either side of the fin, but with the transparent part of the sticker, you get just the nice gray pieces that are placed on, but then the nice yellow color as well of the fin actually shines through. So I personally really love all of these stickers being transparent. I think they look really good this way, and it just helps make this Jedi Starfighter look as good as it does. When it comes to the underside of our build, we have two flick-fire missiles underneath each wing right where the laser cannons are. You definitely got to get your finger in there in order to actually use the flick-fire missiles. It's not that easy, but another nice play feature that the designers put into this build. And then near the back of the Jedi Starfighter, we have the two engines, which are these larger gray engine pieces. They definitely look pretty dated to me, so something that just hasn't aged the best in my opinion. And then lastly, the Jedi Starfighter has retractable landing gear. You have one central piece kind of near the front, and then one on each side underneath the wings. It's a basic system, but it does work very well. When it comes to the 7669 Anakin's Jedi Starfighter, you aren't going to be buying this set today because it's a great Jedi Starfighter set. You are buying this set because you are a serious LEGO Star Wars collector, perhaps you're just a really big fan of the Clone Wars, or a bit of a combination of both, and you want to have a really awesome piece of LEGO Star Wars' history. Of course, this being the very first LEGO Star Wars The Clone Wars era set ever, and to me, I think that is a pretty big reason to want to add this set to your collection, and it's one that I just think is genuinely pretty cool and one I'm very excited to display somewhere in my display shelves behind me. Got a figure out exactly where this one is going to live, but it's going to be a proud point of my collection because of just what it is. Now, looking at this set from the perspective that it is from 2008, I think the overall design of the Jedi Starfighter was done very well. It's a lot more accurate looking in terms of that design and color scheme than I thought it was going to be when I looked at the source material. So that was a pretty cool thing to stumble upon while I was making the review. It's also got some great play features as well, how you can eject R2-D2 out of the astromech docking port, the flick-fire missiles underneath the build too. Just a nice features in terms of the play that's added in there. You know, a few things that I'm not the biggest fan of, like the two-tone kind of gray color scheme thing going on. I just don't think that looks the best in my personal opinion. And there just are things that haven't aged that gracefully, like the larger engine pieces on this build as well. They just don't look the best today. But from the perspective that this set is from 2008. It comes with two really great minifigs as well, especially for the time. I think for the Obi-Wan Studios official set rating, I think an 8.5 is very fair. It's a great Jedi Starfighter build. Of course, if it released today, you'd be kind of like, okay, there's some things that's missing, like a clip to store Anakin's lightsaber when you're flying around with it, for example. That's a feature that's not included at this one either. So a few things there that could have been done a little bit better, but also it's pretty accurate looking. It's a great build with lots of play features in it as well. So it's just a set that I think is just really cool. Thank you for watching my review on the 7669 Anakin's Jedi Starfighter. As always, you guys, let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. And if you did enjoy the review, please remember to leave a like. And if you want to support me and the LEGO Star Wars content that I make, and you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It's just the best way to support the channel and the videos that I make. And until the next one, you guys, take care, and I will see you on the next LEGO Star Wars set review.